Hey, Cleveland, this is Tristan Thompson of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and you're listening to Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, do you tweet? So do we. So tweet with us 24/7 at the Sports Fix CLE.
Hey guys, J-Rocc here from the Sports Fix, and we always talking about using our platform to try to help the world and the society we live in, and everywhere I go and everywhere we go, bullying is one of the problems in today's society. There's nothing worse than any person, big or small, strong or weak, adult or around, vulnerable and victimized at the hands of a bully. Change comes one person at a time, and my good friends at No Such Thing as a Bully are working on skills and tech.com.
Bro, join the herd.
It's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
And away we go. Welcome in, you guys, another midweek hump day edition of the Sports Fix here live on the air, off and running, as we say, and a lot to get into. A little bit different of a midweek show here. We've got my man, yep, there you go, I see LG in the chat room, Dallas making a house call. Bill Check, quarter pole of the season for most. Can you believe that? Already 25% complete with the football season. It moves so quickly. We're going to talk about that. Browns and around the NFL, Dr. Football. Matter of fact, Bill's going to be stopping by just about 10, 12 minutes from now, jumping in on the conversation early, and we'll talk all about all the latest going on with the... That's right, Larry. Where the hell has 2015 gone? Flying by. We'll talk quarter pole, NFL, Browns, all of that with Dr. Football here early on in the show. Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. Mikey B in the house. We'll talk about the Indians. Yeah, what a wonderful country this America we live in. We were joking with each other last night as we were coordinating the logistics, you know, and I'm not taking pot shots at the Indians, but nice country this America when you can have the, well, I guess disappointing from the aspect of the expectations at the outset of the season, type of season that the Indians had, and all three members of the front office got promotions. Again, I wish all of our jobs, that's what Mike texted me last night. He said, boy, I wish all of our jobs worked that way. I said, man, me too, getting promotions like Oprah. Promotion for you. We don't want you to feel bad. Promotion for you too. We're going to talk, though, seriously, about the Indians, the new front office, which is the same front office, just moved around, and where they go this offseason. We'll look at the playoffs. They've kicked off here. Matter of fact, the first round already gotten going here. Houston advances tonight. Matter of fact, tonight, to me, it's a shame. You've got 98, 97 wins in the wild card game. It is the way it is. One of those teams, Pittsburgh, and the Cubs, going to have to go home. We'll talk about all of that here with Mike Brandenberry. Cavaliers tipping off the preseason for real, playing a team with a different jersey as they get things going back where they ended the Eastern Conference portion of the playoffs last year against the Atlanta Hawks. We'll get into all of that, guys. The news of the day, tons of things to get into today. Mikey B's in the house. We've got the Dr. Football. You guys, all of us, Bruce already got the countdown. 5 months, 22 days until opening day for the Indians. That's a long way to go. They've still got to finish this season here, and these playoffs should be a lot of fun to watch here. I was just talking to some of you guys before we got on the air, man, about the new teams, it's a good feeling heading into the Major League Baseball playoffs. Be a lot better feeling if the Indians were a part of it. But anyways, we'll have that conversation with Mike. Dr. Football's here. We're talking Cavs. We're going around the league, NFL. So much to do, guys. Let's do it. Welcome in, my friends, to the Sports Fix. I am your host, the Big Daddy on the microphone, J-Rocc, Jerry Myers, here with you guys for the duration and each and every time we crack the mic live across the Sports Fix Radio Network at noon. Maybe you're enjoying it live on TuneIn's radio app worldwide, on Spreaker and Mixlr and their respective digital and mobile apps. Perhaps you're enjoying it, as I say, each and every day live on our home base, thesportsfix.net, your one-stop shop, everything Cleveland sports, sports fix, replays, podcasts, social media, all right there. Bookmark it, thesportsfix.net as well. All of you, thousands who listen 24/7, as we say every day, digital delay, the way to go there if you can't listen live on places like iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes, those of you that download us and subscribe there, on Stitcher Radio, on all of the smaller sites and podcast feeds and all the different places that you guys get the show, get your fix. Thank you so much for doing it. You are the sport. You are the sports fix. It's you guys. It's me. We do this thing together and create what we got going. You get your fix. And today, as I mentioned, we've got multiple guests coming up, and we're starting early and right off the bat. So the phones will probably be pushed live until the back segment of the show. However, anytime, day or night, you can always leave your take on the hotline or live when we open them up. 216-539-7535. Be the voice of the show. 216-539-7535. Facebook, Twitter, email, facebook.com/thesportsfix. All you out there on Twitter land, hit me up at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com, facebook.com/The Sports Fix, Twitter at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, Daddy, thesportsfix@AOL.com. And hey, while you're here, make sure you go tell somebody else to tune in. Tell them to jump in, click the share button where you're at. Let's get this party started and keep it rolling. And speaking of getting the party started, the baseball, they got their party started here yesterday. The baseball, like it's a singular thing. Major League Baseball got their party started here, and the New York Yankees. As a matter of fact, I'll jump the gun. You'll hear it when we do the news update here. The right way to put it. It took them 3 years to get back to the playoffs, and it took about 3 hours to be knocked out of it for the New York Yankees. Couldn't happen to a better bunch of guys there, as the Houston Astros win that one 3-0, move themselves on in advance in the Major League Baseball playoffs. As now in the American League, it's going to be the Astros and the Kansas City Royals. It's going to be the Blue Jays and the Rangers, which was already set. And then tonight, as we mentioned, the 98-win Pittsburgh Pirates, 97-win Chicago Cubs meet in the wild card. Bruce in the chat room, go into the game. That should be a lot of fun. Should be a crazy environment. As I've maybe mentioned before, I'm personally rooting for the Chicago Cubs in this whole thing because Back to the Future is truly one of my favorite. I mean, that's right up there with the Major League, with a couple of select movies that are at the tippy top of my list. I love Back to the Future. Back to the Future 2, not as strong. It's much like Major League 2, and then we don't talk much about Major League 3 and Back to the Future 3, kind of in that same vein there. Not as bad. Major League 3 dropped off the cliff much more than Back to the Future 3 did, but still, Anyways, going back to the Wild West and all of that with number 3. But if you remember, Back to the Future 2, 2015, the Chicago Cubs were predicted to win the World Series. I think it was against with the Miami Sharks. And there is a team in Miami. They're not the Sharks, but or whatever the name was. But I remember that, the Cubs, and it was up on the big hologram screen. So strictly for that bit of cinematic nostalgia, I would love to see the Cubs win this thing. We'll see. And hey, real quick, speaking of the Yankees, you guys, taking it off of the levity and going to a little bit more of a serious thing. Again, as we talked about it on Monday, kind of broke the news as we were going on the air. CC Sabathia, former Indians pitcher, ace here in Cleveland for so long, puts himself into rehab for alcohol rehabilitation right at the beginning of the playoffs. This was Monday when we were cracking the mic and getting on the air. We started to talk about that. And I don't know if you guys got a chance to see the piece that has come out. There's been several that have come out, but I know I saw one that Wallace Matthews did from ESPN about the warning signs and how really things had reached rock bottom, or at least it appears now from the outside looking in, for CC Sabathia last week at the tail end of the regular season as the Yankees were in Baltimore and as they were going through their celebration of making their way back into the playoffs. These were some stories. I mean, it even took me aback. And, we get desensitized to a lot of this stuff with athletes, and we hear so many crazy stories. You hear so many like off the wall things that they become normal and it kind of desensitizes you a bit. But I was sitting here reading some of this and going, wow, because you just don't expect this at the major league level, especially because a lot of times we're talking about performance enhancing substances, guys, or recreational activities. What goes on to this. DC was apparently seen on his way out and mumbling and ignoring some of the media that were talking to him on his way out. Even more alarming than that to me is that later on that same day, he was seen as a teammate was working out, walking up to him. And again, this is maybe more will fall into this later when the stories come out. And really, when you hear these, to think that the guy stepped up and did something, that's the key to the whole thing. Is this isn't a whole bash CC Sabathia thing. This is a guy clearly, was spiraling into a bad place and saw that. And how many people, by the way, and I'm not trying to put him up on a pedestal, but how many franchises would have said, hey, it's playoff time, and people would have said, hey, we'll deal with this later. Hey, it may be bad timing, and that's an issue that you deal with your teammates later, but none of that matters at the end of the day except getting yourself together. But going back to this story here, walks up to a teammate that wasn't named in this story, hand him a cup and offered him a drink of it, and it was apparently not known what was in there, but it's been insinuated in this article that it was a brown liquid that the teammate turned his head away from and said that he had to finish working out, which kind of leads you something of a recreational substance type usage. But anyways, immediately after that, and here's where smoke turns to fire, CC was grabbed by a teammate and walked out of the building and put into a cab and headed out of the way as attention was being brought to these things. And several other instances throughout that, including reports, and this is in the New York Post, which is Monday, reported that it was basically a week-long bender was the quote that they used leading up to that final weekend in Baltimore, as well as Sabathia openly drinking at various points throughout that weekend in Baltimore. And end of the CCA. It's not when you had a car I shouldn't have been doing, and it's all over the news. And those are always the ones that you hear about. But, this was being preemptive, and this was definitely something where it was a bad case getting worse by the day, and something had to be done. So, but I mean, I was shocked only because maybe it's just because, again, maybe it's because it's baseball and so there's a little bit of maybe a different, I don't know. I don't want to say not the party atmosphere, but there's definitely a different type of locker room vibe in baseball than there is in perhaps the NFL or the NBA. And, everything's got its own clicks, its own vibe. And, either way, just that's a shocking visage of a guy like CC Sabathia, any type of a professional athlete like that, on an organization like the New York Yankees. I mean, this is also an organization. Say what you will, take your shots about how they spend money and all of that, the evil empire, the different franchise. And you've got those things in atmosphere, the guy today in and out, functioning alcoholic, clearly. There's many people that have that level where they're able to function and then when they're off work, but when it bleeds over, when you're openly drinking in the environment of Major League Baseball, that's just something that you don't expect. At least I didn't expect to hear. Perhaps this happens much more than we know about, but this was one that as it came out, I said, wow. So again, you're glad that it comes at a time when the circumstances are at situation and we're trying to fix something of that nature. So anyways, as I was getting ready to go to the New York, my man Dr. Football getting ready to join in on the conversation here, having some trouble getting him to connect in. Welcome in those of you that are just joining us here to the Sport here, doing the thing, talking a little bit about, we'll get more into the playoffs here as Mike Brandenberry joins us just about 30 minutes from now. Mike Brandenberry will be here and we'll pick up on that conversation. I want to see what Mike thinks too, because he's been around a long time here around the Indians organization, and CC Sabathia is a good guy, by the way. I've had the chance to meet him several times, and I know different people have different opinions of people, but always a good guy with me. And whether he was or wasn't has nothing to do with whether you want to see him turn himself around. But we'll talk some more about that with Mike here a little bit later on. Speaking of New York, and they've got all kinds of things in the news with their sports teams as always. And you go to the football field, Odell Beckham Jr., the $9,000 punch that he threw the other day in the game. But to me, here's a funny story as I get Bill in a moment. I don't know if you guys saw this. Victor Cruz, who's temporarily not playing. He hasn't played this season. The wide receiver, the Dancing with Stars star, as you would say. I don't know where the place. I just got a kick out of this, and I'll kind of segue into bring him. Just be careful, athletes, because the might happen to you when you get caught hopping around out there by your woman. Beyonce here, Elaine othered up. And here's the funny part, and I don't know about this detail, but I'm looking at the graphic of the screenshot of the text message that was sent out, and there's 201 recipients on this. 201 recipients on this. What Miss Watley did is she went and gathered up all of the phone numbers and girls that Victor Cruz was apparently dalliating with here on the road, and put them all together in a group text, and then sent one out and said, "Hello, ladies." This is pretty funny. There's a screenshot of this text actually floating around. Victor Cruz's fiance. You all know about me, and I seem to be the topic of conversation in all of your conversations with Vic. I'm sure he told you many of things about us and how we don't exist, but the fact that you all hide in hotel rooms only, we know that that must be a lie. Just as he tells me all of you are whores and mean nothing to him. But I figured since you all know about me, then I should introduce each one of you to each other, so then we can all know who we've all been. So ladies, feel free to meet one another. Some notes, and she sent this out to the entire group of all the women apparently in Victor Cruz's. You see these stories from time to time on how these things explode of social media. Another example of that, and it's the perfect segue to get my man Dr. Football, Bill Checkus here in on the conversation. Of course, Bill has covered football professionally for over 30 years here now, and that we're talking about his Giants. Don't worry, we're going to be talking. Dr. Football in the house. How you doing, my man?
What's going on? How you doing this Wednesday for you afternoon, for me still morning?
I'm good, my man. How you doing? I know we're doing better than Victor Cruz is doing today. I'm pretty sure about that.
Well, I just Googled that whole exchange that you just talked about, and I'm looking at this picture on, I'm not going to mention the website, but it's a picture of him and Elena, and I remember meeting her in my last interview with Victor before I left the New York market and came here to Arizona. And, he was always a great guy with me. But, I'm looking at this picture, and she's all dolled up with a slit up the front of her skirt, looking as hot as ever. Although when I saw them, she was pregnant with their baby. And it was, I kind of believe it had to be something for Xbox. That's why I went. And Victor, in very poor form, this morning, black shoes, sweatshorts, 2 T-shirts, a white one underneath a black one, and J-Rocc, no socks. You cannot wear dress shoes with no socks, bro. I don't know what it is.
Oh, man. Anyways, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. Let's talk some football instead of this junk, all right?
Absolutely. Hey, man, tell you what, it doesn't stop for your New York Giants. With all of that surrounding, you got ODB getting himself in some stuff, and you got Victor Cruz out there in some stuff. I saw, actually, this is breaking. I don't even know if you've seen this, and I don't have a lot of details, but there's now staph infection issues going around the locker room. I saw that Tom Coughlin was addressing that apparently this morning in his press conference. Some MRSA perhaps infecting the locker room there, and we know firsthand that happened here in Cleveland years back. It cost people careers. It cost there were lawsuits. There was a lot of things that went down because when the Browns got that MRSA in their training room, they had it professionally done several times, and it still kept coming back. That is some very resistant bacteria to get rid of. It's very hard and very troublesome for a football team.
It is, and I actually did hear about it in the league, and I have a buddy of mine, my friend, I could throw his name out. a couple of channels over there. He's their Giants commentator and runs their Giants blog for them. And he sends me a little thing from the press conferences every week just to keep me up to date. And he said, I'm afraid to go in the locker room and do any interviews because there's staph infection running around. And he said exactly what you said. They don't want it to develop into MSRA, which doesn't just cost people careers, Jerry. It costs people their lives.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. That's what I mean. That is some very serious stuff there, threatening stuff when you get it. I've known athletes who, again, lost their careers and lost their lives at this stuff. And I don't know what level they're at. Cleveland, it was dealt with multiple times and kept resurfacing itself. And again, that cost Joe Jurevicius. It cost a couple of other players a lot of time and or their career while they were here.
Yeah, well, Joe was always great when he was with the Giants. I loved talking to him.
Love Joe.
Although I will say I used to call him slow Jurevicius sometimes, but he had a great pair of hands. He was a good wide receiver going over the middle. He was a lot like he was a lot like another former Giants receiver who went on and actually went to the Broncos, and he's now in coaching. There are a lot of guys who are not the fastest guys in the world, but they find that seam in the defense.
Oh, yeah.
They have that. They run that route, and just look over his left shoulder, and there would the ball be coming, and that was his MO. That was his. The way he functioned. He ran those underneath routes. And again, he wasn't the fastest guy in the world. He wasn't a sub 4.5 guy. He probably ran about a 4.65 in workouts, if I remember correctly. I have to check my notes for you on that because it was so many years ago. It's not even on this computer. I have to boot up the other computer to look for it. But and again, this is something that the league needs to address. And Jerry, I know you know about it professionally, and too, a couple of times a month when you wrestle, properly.
Hey, I'll tell you what.
So you got to watch yourself also.
That's so funny that you mentioned that because a friend of mine just literally a few weeks ago almost had some very, very bad stuff happen. He ended up spending several days in the hospital because of just what you said. Ended up wrestling on a mat that had not been disinfected well enough, apparently, as he got a very serious blood infection. And luckily, I told him, I said, if I were you, I may be dead right now because I'm one of those stubborn guys when it comes to going to the hospital. And they told him at the hospital, he's the opposite of me. He's very proactive. He went right away. I said, man, I may have died because I may have stalled going to the hospital long enough that it may have got me because that's how serious it was. He got a very serious blood infection. Took several days for them to get it out of his system and prop him back up before they could send him home. So you're absolutely right. And you definitely don't want to hear about stuff like that, man. We're talking about all this stuff off the football field. Not that it's that much better for your Giants on the football field there as well. It's, hey, no better here in Cleveland. Let's start with the Browns. I mean, we're 4 games into the season for the Cleveland Browns, and 1-3 is the record. And the way they've got there, I think, is perhaps the opposite of what many people thought heading into the season. Many people thought very poor offense, rely on a very strong defense through 4 games. It's been the exact opposite of that for the Browns. It's been a surprising offense and a very, very disappointing defense.
Yeah, and I'm sure Coach Patton isn't very happy about that, being a defensive guy. When you allow 102 points and you only field 85 after 4 games, there's something wrong there. You can't get the transmission of the car up into second gear. That's what the problem is. When it comes to the defense, they're not plugging those holes. They're not tight to me or the green zone or whatever you want to call it. They need to extend that out to the 25-yard line, to the quarter mark on the field, because especially now with extra points being longer and with teams going for 2 after the touchdown, the red zone or the green zone isn't just 20 yards anymore. It's further out down the field, and you really need to stack your defense, in the proper zone alignments, whatever you want to call it. It's still a zone, all right? I was a defensive coach and a special teams coach, and we coached in zones. And mostly I ran the umbrella. A lot of coaches in the NFL wouldn't do that. That's really a college formation. The only NFL coach that I ever remember running that was Tom Landry's Cowboys. But you have to remember, Jerry, and this is not just when I don't mean you, I don't mean you.
Right.
I mean people in general need to remember that they're trying to make the NFL a high-scoring league, a lot like the Arena League is, and a lot like college football is. And they want to see 35 and 40 points a game. So they don't really care if the defenses are lax. People who want to see good defense, I'm sorry to disappoint you by telling you that.
And you know what? You kind of set me up here without even knowing, but this was somewhere that I wanted to take this conversation. So before we get too deep into anything else, let's stop there. Talking about defenses, Monday, when we came on the air, I was talking to Dan Wismar, my guest, and one of the first things that I mentioned on Monday's show when we came on was how, to me, and I was even talking to the audience here and asking if I was the only one, I said, did you guys watch that game and get the feeling that there were times that Phillip Rivers knew exactly what the Browns were doing to his offensive lines of players, what was going to happen? I knew it. I saw it. And there were a few great moments where they caught the audio of him just picking off the Browns blitzers and letting everybody. And granted, Phillip Rivers is a great veteran quarterback able to do that. But as I'm watching it, I talked about it on the air. Well, since we've been on the air yesterday, Tramon Williams, who came over from the Packers in free agency for the Browns this year, kind of discredited Mike, because Mike Pettin was asked about that, and he said, no, they don't know the plays we're running. A lot of teams in the NFL run similar stuff, and when you've been a quarterback as long as Phillip Rivers is, you can guess, and some he may have just guessed a few right, but they didn't know what we were doing. The next day, Tramon Williams said, I disagree. I'm telling you that they were literally telling us what defense we were in. I mean, it doesn't, to me, come much more blatant than when the defender says they were telling us what defense we were lined up in. And what concerns me more is the week before, and I've got it right here in front of me on my emails from the Browns. It was before the game. It was the last post-practice press conference that Mike Pettin did on October 2nd, heading into the weekend and heading out to San Diego. He was talked about the problems on defense, and he answered that we simplified some things this week, simplified some calls and some of the things that we did. It's not a wholesale group of changes, but we may have done some things to simplify some stuff on defense. And I was joking and saying, well, you haven't stopped anybody yet, so I don't know how much simpler you can get. But that really struck me when Tramon Williams accused the Chargers of knowing their defenses and calling them out, because the coach just said that we even scaled back a bit defensively. That alarms me. You being a coach, being around the game the way you have, I mean, how much is there to the fact that every team in the NFL runs similar stuff, or is there something to the fact that another team could so easily read the Browns' defense?
Because first of all, on my Sunday ticket on Sunday, double screen, because the Giants Bills were part of the national package on Fox. I don't know why, but they were here in the West. So I was on the 4 screen, and of course, Browns Chargers was one of those games, and I switching through the volume, right clicking through the volume on that 4 screen every so often, and listening to Rivers' calls and saying, well, how did he know that the defense was wrong? Pretty obvious. He knew the calls. Now, whether it was because there is a former Chargers assistant on the Browns staff, I'm not sure. You could check into that for me. But, we know there's all kinds of collusion going on between owners and general managers. Why wouldn't it be such a far stretch to say that there's collusion going on during the game with players?
Real. I mean, I didn't know you were going to go that way with the conversation, but I don't know that it's that. I think it's just, I mean, the question needs to be asked. I mean, clearly there's been plays this season game with Phillip Rivers where I've said, man, it just seems like wherever the open man is, the other team find. And I'm not just talking Phillip Rivers. I'm talking Carr. I'm talking Mariota. I'm talking all through the season. Whatever it is, you go, man, it's like they knew what the Browns were going to do. I just wonder if there's not some tells that have been picked up in the way the Browns line up. And Mike Pettin got really defensive about this the other day. He said yesterday, he said, look, he said, you can only disguise so many things. You can only hide so many things. But if that's the case, all I'm saying, and I like Mike Pettin, but I'm starting to pile up the evidence against him here little by little as this season shows us more and more. How come we're not hearing stories every week out of every team in the NFL that says, man, these defenses are being read, and boy, these quarterbacks are getting smarter than our defenses? Like, we're talking about things that I'm only seeing happen around this organization, and that's what leads me to believe that there is more than just, oh, this is what happens in football. This is, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because
Jerry, he's not the only one. He's not the only one. I don't know if you saw Bruce Arians' press conference, after the game on Sunday and on Monday. That was the first time I saw them really play a bad game in about 3 years. And they could have easily won that game because the Rams aren't really that good of a team. But I'll tell you this, okay? They got their 2 wins the same way the Browns have gotten their 3 losses. Okay, by, allowing more points than they've scored. And that tells me something when a team is 500 and they've allowed 90 points and they've only scored 75. That tells me something. Look at the Cardinals, 48 points, and they've only allowed 73, but they're only 3-1. They're not 4-0. And you look at the teams that are 4-0 in the league, and I'm over in the NFC for a minute, but the Panthers and the Falcons both 4-0. The Packers 4-0. Dallas and the Giants and the Redskins in a three-way tie for first place in the NFC least at 2-2. 4-0 for the Broncos. 4-0 for the Bengals. Some of those teams don't surprise you, but some of those teams do surprise you because like we say, stats don't lie. And the stats tell the story.
I believe anybody can make any stats tell you anything that they want. See, I actually come from that school that, I don't know, maybe it's the salesman in me, but I believe that I can make any set of numbers tell you any story I want if I really wanted to. And I do believe that, I don't know, you ever heard that old adage that liars use numbers and numbers lie? I don't know. Anyways, but I know where you're coming from.
That,
let me ask you a question, though.
Jerry.
Before we go into the rest of the league, I want to stay on the Browns because I know I've only got you for another couple of minutes here. Looking at the Browns, let's look at their defense. Let's not talk about, hey, the past is done. They're 1-3. If you look at the Browns defense as it sits now, with the talent, with the play, you looking at, if you're in charge of it now, give me your opinion here. What is the problem, and is it fixable? Is the problem the talent, or is the problem the scheme, or is it the execution? Or what do you think is the problem of the Browns defense as it stands now?
Well, it should be none of those three, but unfortunately it's a combination of all of those three. The execution is the least of the issue because they are executing. They're just not executing fast enough, or they're giving it away too quickly. They're showing too much, pre-snap that the quarterback has enough time to audible. And that's what the problem is. You can't give a quarterback enough time to audible. If you allow him the time to audible the play, then you're already screwed. And I don't mean to say it in a vulgar manner, but that's right. Basically what it is. That's basically what it is. If you're showing that you're going to double down on the insides, on the tight end and on the spot receiver, and that you're going to go one-on-one on the outside guys, and instead of a flare or a fly, he's going to run a slant in or a slant out or down and out, and you're going to have wide open space over the middle, and if the receiver can get his hands up to where the ball is and execute the catch, then you're going to blow a big play. And that's as simple as I could put it in defensive coaching terms.
And I'm with you. And I think that the biggest thing to me is one of the biggest reasons that the Browns cannot get pressure on the quarterback is due. And this is not saying that the talent, because I love the depth on the defensive line, and I like the coverage skills of the linebackers they have, and I think Kruger can be put in good positions, but they're missing somebody in the front seven that has the ability individually, one-on-one, to wreak havoc on every play. And not every team has that. Those are special players. But, people even talk about Mike Pettine's defenses in Buffalo. And again, I point to the fact that you got Mario Williams and Kiko Alonso and Marcel Darius and these guys. You got some hosses. And the Browns have shown only the ability to get pressure on the quarterback when they dial up 8 in the box. When they throw everybody down there, then of course you're going to get a hot blitz. And even then they get beat on those quick slants and those screens a lot of the time. But they don't have that ability to get to the quarterback consistently without loading up and going after the blitz. And that's the thing. And that's why I think you can't disguise everything, because they know that there's not that one guy, and you got to draft. Again, Khalil Mack would have looked really good in brown and orange. There's not that one guy that the defense goes, we always have to know where number such and such is. They don't do that for Mingo. They don't do that for Kruger. Even though those guys can play effectively from time to time, there's nobody that defenses say, whatever you do, watch out for number such and such.
Right, because they don't have a Von Miller on the team.
Right, or DeMarcus Ware or one of those type of guys. Yeah.
Right. Unfortunately, Paul Kruger or Barkevius Mingo are not, they're good guys, very good players, but they're not yet or won't be great players.
Exactly.
And that's what the Giants analogy. They're missing a Lawrence Taylor. They're missing a JPP. Or the Giants are missing JPP too. Nobody should blow their finger off on the 4th of July. And I guarantee you that the Giants took his contract away because there was a non-injury clause in there. Don't get into idiot injuries. Don't play pickup basketball and hurt yourself. Don't go mess around with 4th of July fireworks and blow your finger off.
All right, Bill. Couple of minutes left. Rapid fire questions for you before I let you go. Browns playing the Ravens this week. Both teams coming in 1-3 here, and obviously the Ravens just avoided an 0-4 start. First off, how surprised are you that either of those teams are coming in with that? I mean, the Browns, definitely people thought they had a better chance to win some games. And Ravens, are you shocked that each of these teams are coming in with the record that they have?
Absolutely. I figured the Browns for at least 500, and I figured the Ravens for at least, even though they had their issues, at least 500 or 750, 3-1. And I was talking to somebody I know here who is from Baltimore, and she's a big Ravens fan, and I see her quite a bit. She's one of my nurses at the treatment center. In fact, I'm going to see her in a little while today, and I'm going to ask her the same thing. Are you surprised that the Ravens are 1-3? And when I asked her that last week, are you surprised that the Ravens are starting slow, having all these problems? Do you think Harbaugh's on the... I was talking to my sister yesterday, and he's definitely on the ropes. He went and looked at the Baltimore papers. I think the only saving grace is the fact that they're putting up a lot of points, and because Mark Trestman is there. And I'm not just saying that because I'm friendly with him and I know him through other people. I'm saying that because it's borne out by the facts. Last year at this time, after 4 games, they had less. Now they have 93 points this year. So that even though they've only won 1 game, and is going to have to look at, and they're going to have to see it a second time since they're a divisional rival, they need that scheme has changed. And this is, he hated exchanging film with other teams.
Sense, absolutely. I've heard that too. The Ravens bottom defensively, especially points allowed. They've actually allowed 2 more points in the first 4 games. I keep reminding Lost Nada is there to start the season, and that's taken the heart out of tough. Not that I feel sorry. Either negative to you through the first 4.
I'm surprised that, I guess I'm a little surprised that the Packers are 4-0, but, it puts a happy smile on my face because I hate the rest of the teams in that division, too. Very surprised that the Lions are 0-4, that they're struggling the way they are. I guess, losing Namakun Sue and a couple of other guys in that defense are really, really hurting them. Very surprised in the NFC South that both the Panthers and the Falcons are 4-0. Tremendous points fielded on both those teams, and you go a little deeper in the stats. Net Panthers with 37. Those are surprising. That's all surprising. Surprising that the 49ers are 1-3, not so much. Surprised that the Seahawks are 2-2, pretty surprised.
Of all the remaining 4-0 teams, you got Carolina, Atlanta, Green Bay. You've got New England, who's 3-0. You got the Broncos 4-0, and the Bengals. Which one of those do you think is the most legit, and which one of those is the most likely to fall back to the pack by the end of the season?
All right. Well, Browns fans, fear not. The Bengals are a false 4-0 once again. Okay, I don't think that they have the goods. Even if they make it to, even if they're a division winner and they don't have to play a wild card, a 3-6 game or a 4-5 game, don't think they make it past their first playoff game. I'm pretty sure the Broncos are pretty legit at this point. This will probably be the last year they're legit. You have to give them credit. Switching coaches in midstream. Bringing a new guy and, they look as good as they look. Pretty surprised that the Eagles are 1-3. As much as I dislike the other teams in the NFC Least, again, pretty surprised that Chip Kelly would field a 1-3 team at this point after a couple of years of making the switch in the NFL. And with all the talent that Minnesota has, why are they only 2-2? As much as I don't like the other teams in the Central, I'm
telling you, every week it's just amazing how whoever you expect to win loses, and vice versa. You watch these results, and I know the NFL loves it. Makes it hard to.
This is why you play the games. And this is why fortunes are made and lost on these games.
You got that right. Oh, speaking of, later on the show with FanDuel and DraftKings and some insider trading perhaps going on. Dr. Football, my friend, you enjoy your weekend of football coming up. You and I will catch up in the next week or two and talk some more Browns and NFL.
All right, J-Rocc, you be good. And you guys in the chat room, you also behave yourselves, and we'll talk soon.
You got it. My man, Dr. Football, thank you guys for joining us, of course. Bill, thanks for being with us. You can tweet with them at Ask Dr. Football, Ask DR Football, anytime on Twitter. We're going to take a break, get you some news, get right back here in the house with my man Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com joining us next here on the Sports Fix. Don't go anywhere. Coming up next after the news here on The Fix.
The Sports Fix, the show that asks the question,
what you talking about? 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 What you talking about?
We'll be right back.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Hey, this is Scott Fujita, and you're listening to the Sports Fix
Football season is party season at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. College football Saturday with $6 pitchers, 4 bottles HD. Football season is most definitely party season, and your headquarters is Harry Buffalo North Olmsted all winter long. Harry Buffalo, join the herd. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize. I mean, a really real prize. Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy. OnePlayJocks.com.
Man, do I love card night. You ready, boys? You got a king?
Go!
This is WWE superstar Titus O'Neil. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact today. Learn more at 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Signs and Ship, the official printing source of the Sports Fix. Locations in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Florida. Find out more at signsandship.com.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picozzi. It was their first postseason appearance in 3 years, and it lasted exactly 3 hours and 4 minutes. In the Bronx, the Yankees were shut out by the Astros 3-0 in the American League wildcard game. Dallas Keuchel allowed only 3 hits in 6 innings, so it's one and done for manager Joe Girardi's Yankees.
It's really disappointing. It's hard, you know. It's very difficult. This was a club that fought all year long, and there's a lot of character in that room, and this just didn't get it done.
Colby Rasmus and Carlos Gomez to City in Game 1 in their American League Eastern Time Thursday night on ESPN Radio. The National League wildcard winner has advanced to the World Series twice in the last 3 years. The Cubs visit the Pirates tonight in this. You'll learn more today about the status of rookie guard D'Angelo Russell, the second overall pick in the draft. Left last night's preseason game with a bruised glute.
Dollar General is where you can find incredible savings on Dr. Pepper products, like 12-pack cans or 2-liter bottles. Come into your local Dollar General and save today. Make smart plays for game day with Dr. Pepper at Dollar General, where you can save time.
Now, back to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live. J-Rocc back with you here, rolling on, about to hit hour 2, and be joined by my man Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTruckWinLastNight.com. And the Indians won't win again for another, 5 months and 22 days there, according to Bruce Wood, when they kick off. Well, not exactly changes the front office. Moved some pieces around and for the teams that made it there as well. We're going to talk some baseball and who knows what else with Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. Coming up next here, he's joining us. You guys can keep the conversation going on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Twitter @TheSportsFixCLE. Email sportsfix@AOL.com. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Twitter @TheSportsFixCLE. Email us, TheSportsFix@AOL.com. I'm going to pull up the phone as soon as it allows me, anyways, to pull up the phone line here. I'm having all kinds of, you probably hear it. I'm having all kinds of issues. Once again, down, we won't have these issues anymore in the next week or so when this gets cleared up. Anyways, as soon as I can go to the phones, I apologize. Sitting there waiting for me to allow him to talk, and the computer decided not to do it. Now I can get him on. Mike Brandenberry, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Hey, man, I was doing my own show. I'm snarky, and it was just me.
I mean, at least somebody could hear that one, because Lord knows I'm having more. Guys, once again, I think you can actually hear me finish my sentence now. We're 12 days away. 12 days away from the bandwidth issues being permanently corrected. So, just a handful of episodes of the show, and I apologize for it. But trust me, nobody's more frustrated with it than me. you know what I do over here? I mute the microphone and say things that I can't say around your women and children. So just know that I'm equally frustrated. Mike, hey, how you feeling today? I mean, I know the Indians aren't in the playoffs, but the playoffs are underway, and it looks like it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I thought last warm up to maybe tonight even, and the postseason's fun, even if your team's not in it. I mean, I tell people sometimes I think as I've got older, I don't know if this is a bigger topic for another show, but I think I've become more of a baseball fan and maybe less of a fan of a specific team along the way. But I mean, I love the game, and I enjoy a good game, and last night was a good one.
Let me tell you something here. You know what? Let's do this real quick, because you and I have 6 months to talk Indian, so if we go off the beaten path in a minute, that's okay. But I noticed this. You know, I talk all the time, and we have fans and ages, and is baseball losing the fan, and all of the different things that we debate, speed of the game and attention syndrome and all of that stuff. But I was with a bunch of guys over the weekend watching some football, and one of the things that came up was baseball. And all these guys who spend all season long telling me how baseball's slow, boring, takes too long, there's too many games, all of these reasons that they check the score on their phone while they're in the middle of doing something else and don't watch the games, they're all like talking baseball play. And they're like, yeah, hey, playoffs is different. Now I start paying attention because there's just too many teams and too many games, and it takes 6 months. But once you get to where the games actually mean something, then I watch them, and I'm going, wow, okay. And so that makes me wonder, week like that, it does make me wonder if there isn't some validity to the length of the season issue, because these are hardcore in July. Don't bother them with baseball because they're going to tell you how boring it is. But here they are going, yeah, man, I want to see what happens with this team and that team. And you're going, hey, didn't you say don't bother me with baseball? Well, that was in July. Now it's playoff time. And that doesn't that lead you to believe that perhaps there is something to the issue of that 6-month baseball season with the modern sports fan?
Oh, yeah, I 100% agree that the season is too long and there are too many games. And, I mean, I think the easy comparison that everybody runs to is, you know, looking at the NFL. But I think even if you look at the model that the NBA has, it's half as many games. They don't play every day. But there's times, to me, the NBA is like the schedule that's kind of in the middle. We all know that the NFL is like appointment TV when your team plays, or when there's a big game. And, you know, Major League Baseball, there's a game every day, and it's easy for it to just kind of become white noise. And I think what the NBA has is kind of, you know, maybe a little bit of the best of both worlds. And if I was Major League Baseball, I would try very hard to try to model my schedule towards that NBA model of, you know, not every game is must-see TV. You know, even if you're a Cavs fan and you're stoked about this year and you're planning your parade route like I am, I mean, you're not going to get excited for the Milwaukee Bucks on a Wednesday. But the fact is, you know, I just did I belong to part of a season ticket package. And, you know, like a lot of people, our ticket draft the other day. And after the home opener, the tickets that were the first ones to go, you know, I mean, you can probably guess them before I even tell you. But
no doubt.
You know,
we're
the
talking.
Spurs,
you're talking about
Spurs,
the Bulls, the Spurs, the Thunder,
yep, exactly.
The Clippers.
Right,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, Major League Baseball would really benefit if they cut out 30 or 40 games. I don't think they'll ever go that low, but it would be great if they did. And they make almost as crazy as it sounds. If you're in any way a college baseball fan, they play series. You know, your conference games are usually like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, kind of your traditional 3-game series, or you play 1 Friday and 2 on Saturday if you got a long travel back to your school. And then a lot of schools will play like non-conference games on Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday. I would love to see Major League Baseball adopt some kind of schedule like that where your team played maybe a league series or a divisional series on the weekend, and then you got a non-conference type game, whether it be, you know, a West Coast team or a National League team, you know, kind of almost as that non-conference game, because, you know, that's the same as the NBA. The Spurs only come to Cleveland once. You know, and I think you see that with interleague play, you know, when the Cubs come, or, you know, the Cardinals, popular teams, or, you know, God forbid, you know, when somebody like the Dodgers come, if, you know, if Clayton Kershaw were to pitch in Cleveland, you would get a great crowd, because you're not going to see that guy every day. That when there's some kind of must-see, I think baseball is must-see still, and that's what the playoffs are, because they all count. I mean, let's be realistic, Jerry. Even though it's a divisional game and they do matter, the Indians play the Tigers so many times, it's just kind of white noise. I mean, the Tigers in July or August are it's just another game, and a lot of times it's no big deal. And when you play every day, you know, even that, you know, you play the same team so many times, you can catch them the next time coming through. And even with that kind of the difference of that, like, college baseball type schedule, you know, if there was only one or two games that you were going to see the Angels and Mike Trout, you know, maybe you make a little bit more of an effort to, you know, watch it on TV or buy a ticket and go down to the ballpark, where, you know, I just don't think there's that urgency there. I would love, I think we talked about this a little bit at the All-Star game, I would love to see them go split season and play about 70 games on each side of the season. And they should have started the playoffs shortly after Labor Day.
You know what? You talked about that before. That split season idea always intrigued me when I heard it, man, because then you start over at the All-Star break.
It makes more games count.
Over.
Yes,
I mean,
and that's what people like. It makes
Think
more
about
games
it, Mike.
count.
Think about the Indians this year. It's the perfect example for your idea.
I do all the time.
Well, I know. That's probably where the idea came from. You're like, damn, if we only played 2 seasons, man, the Indians would be the masters of the second season. Because, again, here this year, you know, they're number 1 in defense in the second half. And they're you know, 11 games over 500 or whatnot. They would have probably been the first or second best team in the second half season. So it does make sense, because it also prevents, and this is, people say, oh, people make excuses for there are certain injuries that are bigger than others. It's always next man up. It's easy to say that, but when you lose your starter, your big ace pitcher, or your cleanup hitter for a 4-month stretch of the season in May, it alters your entire season. That really takes that out of the equation too, because all of a sudden, perhaps, you know, now a 3-month injury still gives you a chance to have this guy back for the whole second half of the season, you know, the whole second season. And it doesn't make things in April and May drop the bottom. That's part of why it's impossible for teams to draw in the late season, even if they're playing 500 ball, because they're not making the playoffs. I'm not going to this last game or whatever it is, you know. Like last week, you know, I know there was some brouhaha because Kipnis was making some statements about fans coming out and giving them some energy, and you know, I walk the line on that, because at the same time, you guys get paid a whole lot of money to go out there and play. Your paychecks don't say, hey, here's $1 million plus some fan energy to go out there and play the game. That $1 million should be enough to get it done.
There were a bunch of fans there in April and May while they were laying eggs.
That's
so
what I'm saying.
Don't come crying to me about nobody showing up in September. You know, as long as the model is the way that it is, you know, the regular season's a marathon, and you know, I jokingly told someone the other day, if I had a Facebook status, you know, for my relationship with the Indians, it would be that it's complicated right now. And,
yes.
You know, I've said for players in the past, you've got to show me next year before I buy in. You know, there's been show me guys. I feel like the whole team is a show me team. Don't stop telling me about your second half. Stop telling me about your injuries. You know, I feel everything that I heard yesterday from Antonetti, from Chernoff, from Terry Francona, you could have just scratched out 2015. You know, I feel like they took last year's excuses from 2014. They just drew a line through them and wrote 2015. It's the same thing over, and it all sounds good, but show me. Stop talking about it. Stop telling me about it. Just show me.
Well, you know what? You set it up perfectly. You mentioned the trifecta of names, and I was jokingly kicking off today's show talking about our texting back and forth last night. I said, nice country, this America, when everybody gets promoted. I said it was like Oprah. They said, you know what? We feel bad. He gets to go to Toronto. You guys, everybody gets a promotion. You get one, and you get one, and you get one. But the Indians, no joking, did promote everybody in baseball operations, as you mentioned. Antonetti moves up to Shapiro's position, president of baseball operations. Mike Chernoff is now the general manager, and there was another guy promoted up to Falvey was the assistant general manager. But you still have the same crew of characters still making the same decisions in a different order. Do you feel, because this is legit. Look, I'm an optimistic guy, but I've been waiting to talk to you about this since yesterday. Do you think that a guy like, a Mike Chernoff, who's never been, he's a general manager now. I know that it's groupthink and nothing changes, but doesn't a guy want to put his fingerprints on something? Isn't there the possibility that he's been waiting for his chance to go, I don't want to disrespect the mentors that I've got, but boy, if I had the reins, I might do this or I might do that. Do you think there's any possibility of a change in thinking with a fresh approach, with a young guy who just wants to do something to make a career for himself in a Mike Chernoff?
Well, I'm going to hold on to hope that that's the case. I have serious doubts that it is because, like you said, to me, new regime is the same as the old regime. Nothing really changes, and that group think is there. I listened to a pretty good interview with him with 92.3 yesterday, and one of the things he said is he's been with the Indians for 12 years, and they've let him have a voice at the table since he was 22 years old as an intern. So to me, that leads me more to believe that there's not going to be any change because his voice has been heard loud and clear.
That's scary,
for decades,
man. Damn,
and
you just
nothing's
took the steam
changing.
out of me,
so
man.
I'll give you one trinket of hope. This is probably what the Indians hate about me is that I don't ever forget anything that's ever said or that I read about them. But if you remember, we talked about this not this past summer, but the summer before. There was the Deadspin article where the Astros notes were hacked. If you remember that, they printed all of them. If you remember, the one thing in the Indian that pertained to the Indians was Mike Chernoff called the Astros and discussed. That was the year after 2013, and his phone call to the Astros was that if Ubaldo Jimenez accepted the qualifying offer, that they would be financially strapped and they would be interested and open to discussing trading note in there. And they were feeling out the Astros' interest